The restaurants you love, the food you crave, and the people that make it all happen. We tell their stories on the Paper Trails podcast with Albemarle Paper Supply.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Paper Trails podcast. I am your host, Nick Calagera-Mitros, and we have my friend Courtney, my new friend, Courtney Evans from 3rd and Fernwood. This is season 3, episode 16 of our podcast. You guys know we love bringing you guys, just new chefs in the area, what they're doing, their story, their background. And so we're excited to have Courtney on the pod. And so thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. Well, Courtney, for maybe people that don't know, let's get into a little bit of your background, where you grew up, just a little bit of kind of the origin story.
Yeah, so I'm Courtney. I was originally born in Danville, Virginia.
Okay.
And then I was raised between Columbia, South Carolina, and Brooklyn, New York. My family's from out there, and then part of my family's from down south. So I went to school down south, and then our parents would take us up for months at a time up in the city, and then we'll have the whole being in the city for a summer, being in the city for half the year, whatever the case may be, and then come back down, stay with my grandparents down in Sumter, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. So that's where I grew up at, down in the country. Also up in the city.
Did you like New York?
Absolutely. Love it. That's where my family's from. So I have roots there.
Okay.
Being in the city, it's just something different. Being down here is kind of like, okay, yeah, it's cool. But when I go back to the city, it's like, it just feels familiar. It feels like I'm going to hit the streets. I'm going to hit I get to see my aunts, and I see my cousins on the corner, X, Y, and Z, and we're hitting the blocks and sitting on the stoop and all that good stuff. And just the food was just amazing. It's like even the going out, is great, but we always ate at home as well, and having being able to cook at home and have that community up north is great, and also have the community down south. So I have best of both worlds, but it's kind of hard sometimes too.
You think you're more of a city girl or a country girl?
Oh, city for sure.
City?
Yeah, no.
Is it close, like 60-40? Or no?
I appreciate the country and the South and all the culture and the richness of it, but I also love the city. I love just being able to get up and go, and I'm like, oh, let me catch this train, let me hit on this. What's going on here? Something's always going on, something's always moving. The music, culture, scene, food, it's just so much happening.
Of course.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a
city girl.
City girl.
Okay. All right, so grew up Columbia, also New York, kind of back and forth, family, summer, the whole thing. Okay, so your family is a big food family?
Yes, my grandparents always cooked, my mom cooked. Being up in New York, we loved Caribbean cuisine, Jamaican cuisine, but we always Chinese, this and that. My dad always cooked. My my grandmothers and stuff, they always Sunday dinners. Every week was like, okay, what we got? My granddad used to have a farm or like a little garden patch, so we'd be picking watermelons, shucking peas, and I'm like, okay, if we got a big old thing of peas, we're gonna shuck them today.
So y'all did the thing.
I was like, I had the whole experience. It was like, we're shucking peas and picking watermelon.
That.
Also, hit the city when we go back up north and go into all the aunties around and, let me get my cocoa bread and, beef patty. Let me see this. Let me get that. Let me get my saltfish. Let me get my curry and all that stuff. So I had the best of both worlds in that food environment. So my grandmother was a huge, my dad was a huge drive for my food. Just being able to see something we grew, take that, work it and manipulate it, and then actually put that into our dish later on that night is just something so satisfying.
Interesting. So did you always know that you wanted to get into food, or was that like later on?
So I knew food was always I was always good at.
It was a thing. Okay.
Yeah, it was a thing. It was in the atmosphere.
Okay.
But actually, I wanted to go into criminal justice first. I wanted to be a judge.
Okay.
I feel like my intuition is very on point. I could just read people and things very well. So I actually was on track to become a judge.
Okay.
And then, I don't know, just something I was like, that sounds cool and all. Yeah, being in criminal justice and being, a judge and all that stuff, it's all nice. But food just sounds so much more fun. I didn't know all the intricacies of it yet, but I was like, I love cooking. This is something this is so secondhand to me. I know I can go really deep into it. So let me test it out. Let me try it out. And that's when I decided so I had a tech program in high school. So I went to a little tech program there for about 2 years. We started pro start competitions. And I was like, oh, I think I like competing. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of nice at what I'm doing here. What are we doing over here, guys? So like, I was really feeling
While in high school?
While in high school,
Okay.
yeah. So that was like my first just class of it.
Okay.
Teacher was great. I was actually being taught by a pastry chef, which was also an interesting thing. So I got to learn some pastry side of things that won't normally happen in a regular school setting. And then once ProStart happens, Johnson & Wales, CIA came down. They were like, oh, these are our schools. We can do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, let me see what's what, And of course, grants and getting funding and all that stuff. Johnson & Wales was just the better choice for me to go.
Yeah.
So I decided to go to Johnson & Wales.
Okay.
And I went for 2 years.
Okay.
So being at Johnson
Here in Charlotte?
Here in Charlotte, yeah,
Okay.
in Charlotte, North Carolina. And being there, people were always like, oh, you should have went to CIA or this grandiose school. And I was like, yeah, but I think you get in whatever you put in,
100%.
So I'm like, if I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here. I'm going to make sure I get everything that I can out of here.
Yeah.
Because school's expensive. So can't just be just doing anything. So went to Johnson & Wales for 2 years, ended up not doing my bachelor's. I don't know. I just felt like by that point we had programs that were coming up, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do yet. Like, I'd rather have experience. I'd rather go into the field. I don't want to feel forced to pick a bachelor program if I'm not sure if I really want to do that.
Of course, yeah.
So I ended up leaving. I graduated. I ended up leaving. I did an internship in Charleston.
Okay.
Charleston was cool. It was interesting.
Now, a question. Before you went to culinary school, had you worked at a restaurant before?
I worked at one restaurant the summer before I went to college.
Okay.
It was this farm to table. This is when like farm to table is like a huge thing. Everyone's like, oh, farm to table, farm to table. Like, okay, we're not meeting no farmers. No one's coming by and dropping stuff off. We're just fresh food or whatnot. But it was my first gig as a line cook. It was funny. It was like a summer job. One of my friends put me on and was like, hey, we need to cook. I was like, yeah, I'll come by. And the first time I did an interview, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, they're like, so have you cooked? I was like, no. I was like, how old are you? I'm like, 17, 18. You're like, okay, so you want to work? I said, oh, it's just that easy. I thought I was going to have to go through this whole rigmarole, all this other stuff. I started the next day.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was cool. It was my first time being in the kitchen. I'm like, okay, I was comfortable because I had my tech program.
But you had, I was going to ask, but you had a little experience from like the classes, right?
Right, but being in a class in a setting like that is like, okay, there's 20 of us. You're cooking this one thing today. Here's your little recipe. Put it in the thing. It's like, oh, we got people are coming in. People need to make some money over here.
This is real.
Right. I'm like, okay, wait. I can't just like take my time and like all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, Court, strap in. We're gonna do this thing. Like I don't know. It was a lot of Spanish speaking people too.
Okay.
So I didn't lick of Spanish. Didn't know none of it. I was like, okay, let me just figure this out.
It definitely helps now.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, okay, let me figure out what's going on here. So once I got into it, it was just natural. It was just like, okay, this is what needs to get done. This is the list. Say less.
What are some things that you learned at that first? I mean, because it was just a short stint, right?
Yeah, it was only for the summer, so it was like 3 months.
A few months. Okay. What are some things that you learned there? Anything that stand out to you, like at your first gig? Like, obviously classes, pastry chef, she's helping, basic skills, knowledge. But now this is like you said, real. There's customers are paying us. What are some things that stand out to you?
I would say it's like 3 or 4 bigger things. It's like, yes, I knew how to cook thing, but time management was a huge thing. Learning that you're working on somebody else's time and somebody else's dime is like, okay, it's not as, I just burnt these things and okay, we just get another bag, we just order another thing. It's like, no, that you just wasted like $80, or you just wasted, I remember the first time I was cooking something and my friend burnt candy pecans, and I was like, oh shit, she burned the candy pecans, X, Y, and Z. Manager was pissed. I was like, oh, joint, like she really just threw away like $100, like, and that we had to wait for the next shipment. Now we can't have this thing. And you realize how much things are tied to each other. It's like,
That's
okay,
a good point.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
it's like, okay, you burnt these things. Now we have to pay for it. Now we got to figure out how to order it again. Now we got to find it. Now we got to 86 this thing because now we don't have the topping for it. Now corporate's coming. It was a corporate restaurant. They're doing franchises and stuff. So now corporate coming in, hey, why aren't we doing this thing? And it's like, we seeing it all happen in real time. Like, oh.
Just a ripple effect.
Oh, my God.
That's, Courtney, I kind of like that because I feel like, I don't think people, you know what, maybe even in the restaurants sometimes, people don't appreciate or have gratitude. Like, you know what, that little goof up, you forgetting to take out those baked potatoes or burning something, and it's like, dude, like, we got to wait 30 more minutes for the next batch, like, you know what I mean? Or we're out till tomorrow or the next day, or, you know.
And this is a fast casual restaurant, so people are turning and burning. It's like, okay, somebody's waiting in line for this thing that we thought we had, that we thought we have. So now everybody's stressed, and then you start to feel the stress, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? But in this restaurant, it was, you got to work with different, this is another thing, you work with so many different people, and you realize not everybody cares as much as you think you do. So I learned a lot of soft skills as well working in my first restaurant. I'm like, okay, not everybody's there for you. People are there for themselves, which is, for sure, it's cool, you know. I understand you come in and get your check, but sometimes people just come in to get their check and then leave. Some people aren't there to learn anything. They're here with a pre-notion of like, okay, this is what it's going to be. So those kind of soft skills, how to navigate. I was the youngest in the kitchen too. So I'm working with people that are like 28, 29. And at this point, I'm like 18.
Like career, like
in
line
their career,
cooks.
You know this is like, and at a young age, I just had I noticed things very differently. So I'm like, okay, this person is 28, 29. Some are 30, 35. So I'm like, where am I going to be at in this age? I started thinking about that. I'm like, I don't want to be right here at this age. You know, this is a great startup thing for me. But I realized the age gap and the skill gap that certain people had. And sometimes I was like, I just came in here and I'm on your tail right now. So me realizing how to deal with those relationships as well, because somebody come at 18, 19, you're like, she's outdoing me. People get a little chip on their shoulder, you know? So learning how to deal with that and all the interpersonal relationships, I'm like, I did not come here for all this. I just came to work my little summer job, get a little experience, and then have some money and go into my podcast. So another thing I told my mom, I was like, you know, I want to get a job. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to spend my own money. You know, I got to get my stuff together, X, Y, and Z. So that's one reason I got a job too. So I was like, made my quick little money, and I was like, okay, in college I'm ready. So that was the first job, and it showed a lot, and it made me realize, okay, this is a little glimpse of the industry, but I know there's more to it than just this. So that's why I was excited to go to culinary.
I love that. I mean, there's a lot there that you said that I thought was good. I think number one, just taking ownership, making your own money. I mean, I think, you know, gosh, like I don't think we can overstate that, you know, just there's something about earning something. There's something about like working, and then you just, I don't know, like I even look back, you know, my parents bought my first car, you know, which I definitely appreciated it and I loved it. But when I paid for my next car, man, you take care of that on another level, don't you?
Really
you know,
do.
So yeah, there's something about that I just, gosh, I mean, you know, I really admire and appreciate that. And then the other thing that I really like that you were talking about is about, you know, you working on your skill set and catching up to people that have been maybe in the industry, whatever, 5, 10, 15 years. And here's something that I would implore and really tell people to just consider is continue to work on your skills. Continue to develop new skills. I mean, you know, we're in 2024. There's technology and AI and different things that, you know, that just in general, things that will continue to adapt. You need to adapt.
Absolutely. The worst thing to think is that you learned everything. Because
there's no way.
As soon as you think that you're behind, you're already
It's over.
behind.
The game is over. Like as soon as you think, you know, and I don't care how old you are.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you're in your 40s or it doesn't matter. I say that from a place of, gosh, I don't even know what the word is. Like I want people, like empathy. I want people to continue to work on their skills so they don't like just wait and then things catch up to them and then they're out of a job and then it's like, bro, you knew this was coming.
Absolutely.
Like the world is changing faster now than it ever has. continue to work on your skills, or 17-year-old Courtney will catch up to you. Right? Right?
I will, you know.
Right? Or, fill in the blank, whoever that person is.
Right.
Somebody will catch up to you.
They're on you. They're on your tail.
Exactly. So
unless you want to get past, which is, I think it's a balance, right? Because there's going to be people better than you. And that's the great thing. Let me get next to the person that is better than me.
Sure.
Let me figure out who's the best in this thing and challenge myself. Because as soon as I feel like I'm in a space and I'm like, okay, everybody's looking the same and I'm better than everybody else, I'm not challenging myself in that kind of way, you're done. You're plateaued. What are you doing now? And then you become content. And now you're stuck. And now what are you doing now?
And that's where I think self-awareness, just like,
very important.
If you know that you are not, the best at this or that, have an idea of, what you're good at, your skill set, and then, look for something else. Go front of the house, do different things. And so, anyway, okay. So, graduated.
Yes.
All right. You go to Charleston. Okay. What happens in Charleston? Now, by the way, until I started this podcast, I did not know Charleston was such a. First of all, I've never been, but I didn't know it was such a foodie city.
It absolutely is.
Well, I did maybe first season. I don't know. I'm like 15, 20 episodes in, and probably, I don't know, 8 of the 20 all came from Charleston, and I was like, what's I'm like, I had no clue. So, okay.
Yeah, when I first, going to Charleston, so I graduated, and we had to do an internship. So I was trying to figure out where I want to do my internship at. Oh my God, am I going to go overseas? Am I going to go do this and that? And I don't know what happened, timing or whatnot. So I decided to go to Charleston. Everybody was like, oh, this is golf resort. It's 5-star, 5-diamond hotel. Maybe try to get in there. Did my interview, got the internship. And I was like, cool. Moving to Charleston. I don't know nothing in Charleston. I don't know. I didn't know it was a food city either at first. So I'm like, at this point, I think I'm like 19, 20. And so I get to Charleston. I start my job at Jasmine's Porch. And I was nervous at first. I was like, okay, we're in big hotels. They had the underground. You walked in. They had HR. They had all this other like crazy stuff in there. I'm going on the underground tunnels and like going up elevators, and I see everybody in their chef coats, and they're just going like crazy. And I was like, okay, cool. Now
we're doing it now.
Right, we're here now. We're okay. I'm like, we're in it. But I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm excited. But I'm like, okay, I'm about to kill this. Like, I'm really whatever it is, whatever you need.
So you had confidence walking in.
I had confidence. I am humbly confident. That's all I like to say. So I'm like, I'm not overly confident. I don't think nobody can tell me anything, but I also know who I am. I'm like, okay, I'm not just some trick out. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just anybody just coming off the street. Okay. So I get there, and it was cool. My internship, I started off, one of those seasoned people trained me on sauté. I did some brunch work. Brunch was crazy there. It was probably maybe 400, 500 people coming in, because you had the hotel, you have room service, then you have, they had cabana service as well, because you're right on the beach. So I started on sauté, trained up there. Then as soon as I realized, I was like, I blew past this girl that was training me. I said, "Ooh, y'all in for it."
Skill set wise.
She probably took me less than a week to get. And this is my first time having a formal station, sauté, grill, expo, entremet, all those stations as well. So I'm learning these concepts, learning how timing works and cookery. So I blew past her, and I was like, okay. I'm still in my internship. I'm an intern, right? We're only getting paid. We're getting paid one. This was great, but I'm still just an intern, just got out of school. Some of these people have been here 5, 10 years, whatnot. So blew past that station, and I was like, okay, cool. What's next? What's the next station? I got to learn grill. All right, bet. So I'm learning how to break down proteins. I'm learning how to break down big fish and cleaning certain seafoods I never cleaned before. I never had to do them at such a large scale. In school, you learn these little, okay, everybody's going to clean these 3 mussels, and you're going to break down this 1 chicken. And now you're like, okay, we got 50 pounds of swordfish coming in. We need this ready in the next hour. Service is about to start. So learning those skill sets was dope. I'm like, okay, I never had something that had a picture of me with a halibut that was from my head down to my shin. I was like, I did it. I brought down this halibut. I never did something like that. So I was like, these are some things this is a wonderful time. So then once I learned everything and got everything together, I I kind of was in a space that so Charleston's a food city, but it's also a retirement state.
Okay.
And it was very hard for me to find just my footing there. I didn't know where my people were at. I didn't know where to find myself at in these spaces.
Okay.
Now I know after like leaving there, and I'm like, oh, all this stuff is there. Where was this at when I was,
Well,
at
plus
this
you were
stage?
new.
You know,
it was
what
a
I'm
new
saying?
city. Like,
I'm living on an island. You know, that was crazy too. I'm like, okay, I'm traveling 45 minutes to go to work, and I'm living on a secluded island. I'm like, oh god, this is a little depressing. I don't know what's going on here. So I found a really like identity issue while I was there. So I'm like, I'm working around these chefs, and they're okay at this point. I'm like, some of them don't have the skill set. Some of them just don't care. Like, there's certain things I saw, and I was just like, y'all gonna let that happen? Like, can I say something about it? Mind you, I'm only 5 months in, of my internship. So it was just really hard. So once I finished my internship, they're like, okay, we're gonna offer you a job. And I was like, I'll stay for a little bit longer. I'll work in banquets at this time. I went to the other fine dining restaurant. So I'm really just trying to get everything I can out of of a hotel. I think everybody should work at a hotel because there's just so many things that you can do.
That's a good point.
It is. You do room service, you do fine dining, you can do fast casual, you work at the cabana, you can do whatever. There's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
So once they offered me a position there, it was kind of I felt a type of way actually. So we're doing this thing, we're talking. Nobody likes to talk money, right? Money is just such a hard conversation to talk about.
Yeah.
I know my skills. I learned every station. The only thing I didn't really touch like that was expo. Only the sous chef can be on expo. But I was inside expo. I wasn't outside expoing. So I'm like, I worked all these stations. I'm leading these stations. I'm leading service. I'm still technically an intern. Like, y'all have all these, cook ones and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, let's talk money. Okay. I want to make X amount of money. This is how I feel like I'm worth and X, Y, and Z. And chef comes and is like, okay, yeah, let me talk to the people. I'm like, okay, go talk to the people, whatnot. And the number that they gave me was just such a, I feel like slap in the face. I was like, oh, so that's how much you think I'm worth to you at this point. Yeah, I'm young and I'm not seasoned, whatever, but my skills show I should at least be on par with these seasoned people that you have here. So I felt a type of way. I was like, I don't know about this. So I finished out maybe like 2 or 3 months, but I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, Court, stay in Charleston. You're going to leave Charleston. You're not really feeling like yourself. And then I get an email from one of my old professors I did an event with before I left Charlotte. So I'm going to backtrack, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
So before I left Charlotte to come to Charleston, I did an event at the African American Museum.
Okay.
They were like, oh, we have some, one of these chefs and his wife are doing a thing out here. They need some extra hands. I was like, I make some extra money, see some extra things. And I worked this event, and this is the first time I met Greg Collier. Okay. So not knowing that this man's going to be my, such a pivotal point in my life.
Yeah.
So we go to the event, and I get there. I see the other TAs and stuff from the school, and we are getting set up, and he was like, okay, this is the station. I was working like an action station and whatnot. He was like, okay, you got this. Like, there's a lot of people here. It's a gala type situation.
Okay.
So he was like, okay, you got it. I was like, no, I got it. Like, he was like, all right, she said she got it. She got it. I'm like, I said I got it, so now I got to get it. So we're there, and I'm like killing it. I'm like carving, setting up, cooking, X, Y, and Z. And he's like.
And this is before you went to Charleston?
This is before I went to Charleston. And so then he was like, dang, this girl killing it out here. She just worked this whole thing, just cooked for like 300 people, whatever the case may be. And after that, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to head out. I guess that's everything you need. He was like, yo, where are you at? What are you doing? Like, what's going on? And I was like, well, I'm going to Charleston already. I already committed. So, I went to Johnson & Wales. You have Keith Stewart's number, X, Y, and Z. So I'll be around. He's like, oh, what do you like? Can you stay in it? I was like, nah, when I say I'm going to do something, I'm committed. I'm not going to back out of it. So then fast forward back to Charleston. I'm like trying to figure out what's going to happen. Keith Stewart, one of my old professors, texts me. He's like, hey,
like out of nowhere?
Out of nowhere. That's why I'm like, what is this like divine thing happening?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Is there somebody upstairs that sees me?
I'm like, things are lining up. And every time I think of something, like I think of them in like threes, and once I start saying it out loud, that's when things start moving around. So I'm like, I called my mom. Every time I called my mom, I'm like, Mom, I don't know how I feel about this. She's like, no, just don't worry about it. You know, take your time.
You guys close, you and your mom?
Oh my God. My mom's my best friend. She's like literally like my other half.
Love that.
Yeah,
love
no,
that.
I just talked to her right here. So I called her. I was like, this is how I'm feeling. She's like, no, just take your time. Things are going to come, you know, don't rush, don't force anything. Because as soon as you force something, it's not going to go how you want it to. Boom. Got an email saying, hey, they're opening up this restaurant. I got it in like September, and they're like, oh, we're opening up in like January, February. I was like, okay, you know, it's like, oh, Black owned. You remember the person you worked for before? They're opening this restaurant. They want you to, you know, come on, see what's what.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can do this. Let me see what's what. I gave him a call. I was like, okay, yeah, this is the time frame. But when you open businesses, they always take a little bit longer than planned. And now I'm in Charleston, so I'm trying to make my plans and my moves. I'm like, okay, let me put my notice in enough, and let me make sure my things are lined up. So I ended up leaving Charleston, coming to Charlotte. I stopped by my mom for like a week or so, and then got to Charlotte. When I got to Charlotte, Chef Greg picked me up, and we were like, okay, let's look at the space that we're talking about. First time I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be I'm going to see some cooks and all the other stuff in there. Nothing. Brick. I was like, he's like,
plain, empty.
I mean, markings on the floor. I was just like, what did I get myself into? Like I said, I just quit my job. This is right before COVID happened. So it was 2020. This is February-ish. I haven't found an apartment yet. I haven't I didn't secure the job yet. Technically, I haven't said yes to the contracts and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, let me see what's what. Looking at the markings on the floor, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be cooking here? Like, what's going on? So we were cooking at Uptown Yoke when we was at 7th Street Market. So I'm like, okay, money. I was like, back to the money talk. I'm like, okay, I'm weighing out my options of having experience and getting paid what I need to, survive.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, okay, how can I know this experience is about to be something one of a kind. I'm not going to be able to find something like this right now in this moment, like this, but also I'm moving out here by myself. I need to make a certain amount of money. And that's when I started hustling. So I'm like, okay, what I got to do this is how much you can pay me? Cool. I really want to work here, but I also have to
survive. Yeah.
So from there, I went on, didn't find an apartment yet, found an apartment 2 days before I had to start working. So my brother came up, we moved out. I almost didn't find one. We found a little spot, and I started working. I was like, moved in, started working. We worked at Uptown Yoke. We're prepping everything for the grand opening.
But when you started working versus when the restaurant opened, how much of a gap was there?
Probably like a month.
Oh, so it was almost.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We started working. We got the first week, we got all the ingredients and stuff in. Now we're going through recipes that first week and a half, and then we start bulk prepping some things.
Yeah.
So when we get into the space, we can at least have something together. We still have a whole lot of prep. We got to prep a whole menu. It's only 3 of us. It's me, the sous chef, and a pastry chef. So we're the only ones, and our Chef Greg is the only one prepping. So by the time we get into the space, we're ready. We get into the space, we set up, and then this is the first time, like I said, me seeing a restaurant from start to finish. I'm like, I saw the markings on the ground, and I see the chairs coming in, I see the equipment coming in, and we had the menu together, and we're setting up the kitchen. And it's like, this is the exciting part, but knowing that it took so much time for us to get to this point, and I wasn't even there in the beginning part.
How many restaurants had Greg opened to that point? Do you have any idea?
2. Well, yeah, so 2 technically. Lee and Louise was going to be the second one, and they had Uptown Yoke. The first Uptown Yoke burned in Rock Hill, and they reopened in Charlotte at 7th Street.
Gotcha.
So this will be their second restaurant opening up. So
real quick, I have a question. So you said a couple things that I thought were, I don't want to gloss over it. Okay? So some advice your mom said about be patient, don't force things. Let's just start there. Gosh, for anybody that's watching this that's not even in restaurants, I think that's such a wise decision-making idea, principle, foundation, which doesn't mean don't seize an opportunity.
Absolutely.
But if it doesn't feel right, in your gut. I don't know if there's just too many. Be patient.
That's it.
It's okay. Like take an extra second. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think
hold off for 6 months, a year on buying the house, on getting the new car, get a pre-owned one. Whatever the thing is, I just, you said it, and I just, like, I think I live by that. Like, that actually just happened to me, like, a few weeks ago, you know, I'm you know, like, looking at buying a property, and, you know, I'm just like, you know what, it just, maybe, but, like, I would have to force it, like, not what, and I'm like, you know what, it's okay. Yeah, I'm like,
especially in the industry, it's like, I think sometimes people move too fast, and not saying be in a space where it's not good for you, but have a plan, you know, okay, this is not working, how I'm gonna pivot, how I'm gonna do my pick. Some people pivot into off a cliff, and they be like, okay, you know, I'm taking a step and I don't know where I'm going.
No, exactly. I mean, even that's good advice, right? Like, don't be emotional. Just have a plan. Like, have you want to quit? Okay. Have you interviewed? Do you have you talked to management, ownership? Do they know that you're not happy? Do they know there's a couple of issues that we need to resolve? Like,
and communication is a huge thing.
100%.
Communicate.
Let's talk.
You know?
What's the issue?
Because that half the time, I would say 60 to 70% of the issue is a miscommunication of it. And as soon as you start talking about it, it's too late. You're like, oh, well, I felt like this and this. Like, well, why aren't you saying anything earlier?
I didn't know about it.
You know, it's like, I can't help that I don't know.
No, I think that's, I mean, it's just very, very good. Another thing, just to, this is a personal question. I'm actually curious, okay? You said that while you were in Charleston, on the saute area, after about a week, you already kind of surpassed the person training you. Okay. Do you think there's natural talent in food and in cooking that you just are a superior cook, saute or do you think the other girl or whoever it was, she didn't care? Like is that a thing, or is it proper training, or she didn't know, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I can't say it's only one thing, right? I think it's a accumulation of all.
Okay, so what you think it's 80-20, 80 natural talent, and you're just this is what you're meant to do. 20, you got trained properly. You think it's closer to 50-50? Like, I'm actually curious.
I think it's more. If you had to put numbers to it, I guess 60-40. You know, I think sometimes natural talent is a great thing to have, but there's natural talent, and it's also being able to learn
a skill set.
You know, it's like, yeah, you can be all naturally but sometimes you do have to put the work in.
Sure.
You know, and I'm not saying like, oh, I surpassed her because she didn't put the work in. Maybe she met her cap, you know? People
I totally get it.
Yeah, people have their caps. So I think having the natural talent blows me past a certain group of people already.
Gotcha.
And then from there, taking the skill set and honing the
You got to work on it, yeah.
You know, I'm like, I can't sit here all shiny all the time. Like, I got to buff it out a little bit, you know, clean her out, make sure everything's good. So I'm like, you know, it's not going to stay shiny forever.
I love that.
Out,
okay.
You know,
No, listen, I agree. You know, my family owns restaurants. We own kind of casual calabash-style seafood restaurants, like your fish houses down here. And I worked there since I was 8, 10, 12, you know. And so I'm like on the line kind of calling tickets, grill, they're breading stuff, you know, and I'm kind of putting the things together, and I can see just on a Friday night, Saturday, like the stress level when I get, you know, 30 tickets, 50, 10 to-go tickets, you know, waitresses are calling for stuff. Like it just, you can tell, like, people can manage the stress and the pressure. And that's not saying they're bad people.
Yeah.
Just they're just not meant to do this.
That's the thing. Some people just aren't meant for certain.
And that's okay. You
okay.
You can go do banking. You can be a roofer. Like there's your insurance. There's so many things. Maybe that is just not what.
This industry is a high stress industry.
Major stress.
And some people make it look easy, you know, and like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
No, you don't realize how many things you're juggling, and service and cookery, and say, okay, I'm seeing you do this. I make sure we call a ticket, make sure we're coming up at the same time, making sure, hey, don't do that. We're not on that ticket yet. Hey, what ticket are we working on? Hey, this ticket is walked in. Hey, this person has an allergy. This person, how are we going to fix that? All this stuff is happening at one time. And there's some people who just make it look beautifully smooth, and it's just like, wow, that looks like a symphony in the kitchen. That's what I strive to have, and I love to be around.
Yep, I love that. Okay, Fast forward again. Sorry,
I
needed to say it because it was in my mind. I'm like, don't forget these two things: the patience and the. Okay, so uptown, yoke.
Yes,
you're prepping. Okay.
Getting ready.
Yep.
Like you're on this high of like, okay, we're opening
it's
up.
Happening.
We're getting there, right? And we do our first kind of like soft opening. Like, okay, we're getting ready, maybe. And it was great. It's such a great feeling.
This is Leah and Louise.
This is at Leah
Camp North End.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's you're kind of like on this high. Kind of like, okay, I'm working with these really dope women beside me, Shay Carter and Jasmine Macon. And
shout out Jasmine for being on the podcast.
You know, absolutely amazing. But I'm next to these like amazing women, and it's great because we're all doing something we've never done before. You know, it's kind of like I'm not coming in and everybody's like, "Who the fuck are you?" Da, 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 da. But it's more like, okay, we're in it. We're
a team.
Yeah. I don't feel like they're above me or below me. It's like we're shoulder to shoulder, looking at ourselves. You know, chef is right there, and we're like, we about to kill it, you know, whatever. And I was just like, that's what I wanted, right? That's what I didn't have in Charleston. I didn't have that, like,
camaraderie.
You know, we weren't about to, we knew we was about to get our ass handed to us. But we're gonna do it. And at the end of the day, we're gonna be like, woo, that was hard, but we're ready, you know. We were so prepared, and being in that mindset with these wonderful people was just an amazing thing.
I think, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there is something about working in a kitchen with the most just diverse, someone said this, Chef Daniel Wheeler told me this a long time ago. He said that a kitchen is just a group of just misfits put together that learn how to work together.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? That's a really good way to put it. I was like, but you know what? There's nothing like going to battle, Courtney, with like those 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 people with you. Mm-hmm. Like there is a feeling at the end of a shift that we just crushed that.
Yeah.
We just had a party that actually had 3 parties. We just had a huge we just killed that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going through it, and for me, I'm having fun while I'm doing it. Yes. I don't want to feel like this heaviness about it is like, hey, you got this? Oh, pass me that. Da, da, da. Oh, I'm up in 3. Okay, meet you in 2. Like we're in the window. Like that communication, that flow, that that seamless. I talk about it as a symphony. You know, like there's such a beautiful thing that's happening, and to come up and you have this beautiful plate, and then you're getting served, and it's like, okay, this is why I do. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I do what I do. So we're there and we're getting ready, and then COVID hits, and we're like,
yeah, what a brick wall.
Oh, man, what? We're like, we're running, we're going. It's okay. Like, what do we do? So COVID happens, and I'm like, okay.
So when did you guys open first? When did you open doors?
It was kind of like I want to say it was like a soft opening if I remember correctly. But we weren't open for like service yet. We had
soft opening in March, like right before everything.
I think was it like March 15th, 14th?
15th, something
around like that.
Yeah.
Just hit us. So we're like ready, like that only thing.
And soft launch was like the week before?
Yeah, I think like a couple days. Like we were prepping all this stuff, and so we really had to switch gears so fast. We're like, okay, everybody's closed for like a week, and so we're in the restaurant. Okay, we gotta put this food away. What we're gonna do? We just spend all this money prepping this stuff together. So we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? And now I'm technically I guess a line cook at this point, but so everybody's trying to figure stuff out. I'm like, hey, what's gonna happen? Like, we got jobs? I don't know. I just moved out here. Like, I don't have, I got
rent. I got
what? I'm like, I'm about to start dog walking. I don't know what I'm about to do, but I gotta figure this joint out. So I took a second, called my mom, as I do.
Mom,
look, I'm like,
what do we do?
Right. She was like, okay, we're gonna figure it out. You gotta come back, to Columbia. You come back to Columbia. But I was like, no, like I didn't want to go to Columbia yet. Like I just started finding my footing and stuff.
Yeah. I feel like maybe you started to feel like you found your identity versus in Charleston you didn't.
I was in the midst of it. It's like this. I had myself in phases. So my first phase, I'm like, okay, I'm in a space. I'm not comfortable, which is great for me. I don't want to be comfortable. That means I'm learning something. Something is pushing and challenging me.
Yeah.
So I'm in that phase. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm vibrating. Like, yes, this is great. And there's brick wall. I'm like, okay. So then we switched to goes. Yeah. So we're like, okay, we're going to switch it out real quick. We can do to-goes. We can't have anybody in the building. So we're busting out to-goes. We're trying to figure out, okay, how we're going to do this. Like, we're making little cocktail kits and just trying to do specials and things of that nature.
How was Greg handling all that? Because like I think it was such an unknown.
Yeah.
Like, was he like, all right, guys? Was he like, let's find a solution? Like,
yeah.
How was he? Hey guys, let's have a mastermind. Talk about what all we can do.
For when putting myself back in that space. Yeah. He was very. On the outside, I was like, okay, this is what's happening. Let's take a second, we'll reconvene. He always kept us in the loop, always kept us hey, this is what's going on, being very transparent. Nice. Which is great. I enjoy that because you could easily be like, all right, doors are closed, coming to work, like, what's going on, Yeah. He was always solution oriented. So, okay, we can't do this. Good. What can we do? Yeah. We can't have people in the building. We can do to-goes. Yeah. We're out here, we got masks on, passing the food out and whatnot. It's like, okay, how can we elevate this so we get more sales? Let's do cocktail kits. Justin Hazelton was working with us. So I was like, okay, let's do cocktail kits. We're putting cocktail kits together. So, okay, let's do
cocktail kits.
Yeah. So we will do like what I'm trying to think what was a huge thing. It was like a ginger something. It was like a health cocktail kit type deal. And so we'll put cocktail kits together. We'll start doing little pop-ups and stuff. So, okay, y'all want to get some stuff? Oh, let's do some pop-ups. Let's see, we can theme things for people to come in. Yeah. So that was that was a crazy thing. But then, as a point that, PPP loan came out and all sort of stuff, and people were trying to get their checks and stuff coming back. So I didn't get a check because I was just moving and I technically wasn't working. I just started working and I wasn't working long enough. All this other rigmarole stuff. So now I'm like, okay, how am I gonna figure this out? So I started thinking about selling plates back at home. So I go home. I'm like, okay, let me start cooking there. Let me see if I can do some catering things. So okay, I can't do any large things. Maybe I could do food drops off and things like that. So I, hustling, trying to do whatever I can do.
This was back at home?
Yeah. So I go home and I'll cook there.
So there just wasn't enough traction up here.
Yeah, it wasn't, and I didn't know nobody here. I just moved here a week ago. So I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on here. Gotcha. So I went back home for a little bit, just back and forth. But it was just such a scary time. You don't know what's going on. People were passing. And I'm like, oh, God, let me make sure I check on my mom. And then I'm like, okay, should I go home that much? Because my mom is older. So I'm like, I don't want to endanger her for me just coming back and forth. Sure. So from there, we started, they started having the capacity on there. So it's like, okay, you could be at 20% and 30%. Gotcha. And at this point, back in the kitchen, and we're, finding our groove, doing our thing, and we're able to get back at just normalcy, So we're putting out food, working the line, doing the thing, and this is when I start to grow and start to fill myself out. Yeah. I'm finding my leadership style and finding how do I combat certain tasks and solutions and problems and conflicts and all other stuff, and also learning,
just gaining experience,
just really getting the whole experience. Yeah. And at this point that we started, we got James Beard nominated, and for being in a space that we're working towards something, we're like, okay, we want to be the best of the best. We want to be the best in the city. We want to be the best in the South, best on the East Coast. We're really driving towards something. And when a business has something that we're working towards and you get everybody on that vision, you're unstoppable. And that's what happened. We were all on the same boat, working in the same direction, working in the same.
That's good.
Yeah, it was strong. It was really we started hitting James Beard, and we got New York Times, and we got Esquire. And it's we're killing it out here. We're really doing it. Yeah, we're really. And that was just such a great feeling.
Could you guys feel that?
Absolutely.
And, okay, so I'm sure getting those nominations and recognition was good validation. Yeah. But did you already know? You were like, dude, we're putting out an amazing. Did you? Yeah. Were you guys already yo, this is this is good?
It was a little bit of both. So we're yo, we're putting out some really dope dishes, some really great food. Like I said, the recognition for us wasn't needed. It was great. Like I said, it was validation, great to have. Yeah. But we knew that we were killing the game. We were they couldn't touch us type deal. It really felt like that. And when we came up with dishes, or we executed things, or you know, I'm like, yo, I haven't seen nobody do this type of things before. I haven't seen these types of dishes or these thought patterns of putting these flavor profiles together. Like, oh, people are talking about acid sweet smokiness as a flavor profile, how to integrate that, putting Afro-Southern food together in a way that's not just soul food, you know, just even that story and putting that out there. You just didn't see it, and we were really doing it. And I was like, we felt that, and then, you know, the recognitions and stuff came afterwards.
Okay, cool.
So it was cool. It was great to have that. And then this is when, so then a shift, our next phase came of becoming I was a cook and becoming a leader. And I was in a leader, so there was only 3 of us at that point. We had certain people come in, I'll train them, and this is when me starting to get to, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is X, Y, and Z. This is how we do what we do, because this is a standard that we have, and enforcing standards and things like that. And then I became the co-head chef. And this is my first, like, okay, so this is probably maybe a little less than a year later. I became co-head chef. And that was I was not ready for that. And I was like, I had no formal training, you know, I'm like, I don't even know what being a co-head chef means, you know. I was co-head chef with Brandon Stay, and he's CDC at Uptown Yoke right now. So we were like, okay, we're doing this thing. We work well together. This is like, I like how Chef Greg thinks about putting a team together. Putting a team together is very important, knowing whose strengths and weaknesses. I knew my strengths and weaknesses at the point was I can really put a system together. I can really, you know, we can do standards, we can organize, all the things that people don't think about when they run a business, you know. Right. So I'm like, okay, putting sheets together, putting these inventory things together, this is how it needs to happen, scheduling, all other stuff. Of course, the regular cookery, but I was lacking the creativity aspect, you know. I was like, okay, how do I put these dishes together? I was like, I had this idea, but I don't know how to make it click.
Sure.
My co knew how to make it click. You know, he was like
creative.
He was super creative, and I was like, I need that. That's the whole, you're better at me on something. Sure. Let me be around you while you're doing it. And so
which it's okay.
It's so okay.
Like
people really feel a type of way. It's like, don't feel a type of way. You know,
just be self-aware about it, and then just like, I'll give you an example, Courtney. I'm not a detail person. Mm-hmm. I'm not. Like, I need, so like, that's why in the office I need detail people.
Right.
That's why you hire out what you're not good at.
Absolutely.
Let me do this. I'm strong at this one, and I'm okay with that. It's not a big deal. I don't feel less than, or my self-image doesn't take a hit because I'm not I'm not a 10 in this area. I'm terrible at this area. I'm a 4. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I'm okay with it, and I know it, and you know. So I think just make sure, like, I guess people that are hearing that, like, it's okay. Like, you may not be the creative. Okay.
Right.
Hire somebody that is creative.
Right. And basically, I'm going to do whatever else I can do at the highest level that I can do it.
100%.
Right. Because nobody's going to touch me on that. So it's
exactly.
Like, and then when I feel that crack that I was missing in, I'm coming unstoppable. What? Like, come on now.
Symphony.
As I
exactly.
You know?
Okay.
So I'm co-head chef at this point, working, heading my next phase of leadership. And being in management and leadership is a whole different bubble than being a cook. So one, I never did it before. So I was like, okay, I'm managing people. Y'all are coming to me about issues and things, and this is where I'm like, oh, this is where I could have been a judge at, you know, just really just deciphering what the issues are, how we can be solution oriented. So, okay, this is the problem. What can we do? But it was very difficult. It was very difficult for me being as young as I was. I was 22 at this point, I think 21, 22. I just started drinking. 21, 22, managing people that are twice my age, you know, and you realize people don't like hearing things from people that are half your age or younger than you. Or, you know, it's like, why are you telling me what to do? It's like, I don't got to prove myself to tell you what to do, you know. My work already shows for itself. I don't have to tell you, here, listen to me because it is like, no, you see how I'm working this? You see how I'm running this kitchen? That's more than enough, you know. So that was difficult for me, you know, trying to make sure, keep the relationship good, but also being strict and stern. So that was a hard thing for me once I learned that, okay, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There's certain things that just you can't let get to you, or you can't let matter. Because at the end of the day, you're running a business. You know, I'm my boss is making sure, hey, are these things being met? If they're not being met. Why aren't they being met? Make sure they get met. And at the end of the day, that's what the job is. All the extra stuff is cute, the fluff, the laugh, the jokes or whatever. But when I sit in my manager's meeting and we ask, why didn't you make these numbers? I'm like, okay, I have no, what can I say? I need to make these numbers, or I need to make sure these things are happening.
Another thing real fast I want to just interject is, people sometimes may feel like age will keep them from doing a certain thing, and I don't think so. Like I think if your skill set, okay, I'll give you an example. Do you know anything about piano?
Little, very little.
Okay, all right. If I introduced you to this young 9-year-old child that was a phenom on the piano, right? Mm-hmm. Would we take any pushback on that, on why they're teaching us piano if they're a phenom? No, it doesn't matter their age. Their skill set is 100x all of it, right? So I think it's the same thing, okay? So if you don't use age as an excuse, just get good at the craft, and then nobody can say anything.
That's it.
I will show you why I'm in this position right here. I don't even have to say anything.
Right.
I will just show you by my skill sets, right? So I think that's just something, just a side note for anybody listening that, hey, it's okay. If you are 21, 22, you can run a kitchen.
Yeah,
you can be, kosher. Yeah, like that. It's okay. You can start your own business. It doesn't, there isn't like requirements that you got to hit first in age, and then you're allowed to succeed. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and just, I think another thing too, in just the whole age gap thing is, and you was touching on, is like, you don't let them punk you out. Like, really don't let them punk you out, because you can. There's been so many spaces that are like, oh, can I see the chef? And I walk out and they're like, one, I'm a woman, and a Black woman at that. And they're like, how old are you? I'm like, 22. And they're like, you're pushing out food. Ladies like, oh, where's the owner at? The owner's not here. I'm here. I'm running the spaces. And that's another thing that plagued me for a while, was I used to be in spaces like purveyors used to come in, and like I'm in the kitchen. They're like, oh, can we talk to Greg? It's like, Greg's not here. I'm here though. It's like, oh, well, we'll wait for it. It was like, no, he left me in this position for a reason, and I'm more than capable to handle these. More than capable to handle these situations. And I get side-eyed a lot. It's like, oh, you? Oh, yeah. And then I started talking what we need to talk about. It's like, oh, okay, you know what you're talking about. She knows. I know, and so that was
That's how my cousin and I were. We started our paper company. We were 22 and 18. Okay, and we go to these paper shows, kind of like food shows, but just for disposables, containers, the whole thing. And they're like, oh, who do y'all work for? They're like, oh, yeah, we own the business. I'm like, no, seriously. Because, everybody was in their 50s and 60s. These people have been brokers and manufacturers, reps for a long time. And we're like, no, we're 25 and 21. But nobody believed us.
Right.
Nobody was like,
what do you mean? Nah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but I definitely get it. I definitely get it.
So being in that space especially as a Black woman, it was just like, I dealt with that in Charleston. I dealt with not being seen or like heard, or it's like, oh, okay, I'm in a kitchen full of white men, there's occasional white women there, that's cool or whatever, but she's like, doing off her own thing, and they just is dominant in the thing. It's like, nah, like, I got something to say too, and I can keep up to par or even better than a lot of you. And that's why this space is so important for me, and so managing in that aspect from age and gender and race was hard. It was difficult. But then I started learning myself. I also learned that's why my communication was very lacking. I'm a very nonverbal person. I'm like, I'll do something. I'm like, can't you just see me doing it? Just like do it. And that was my cook mind to management mind. I'm like, okay, not everybody knows. Not everybody speaks the same language, the same. I can show you what I have to do. I have to learn. How do you learn? Do you learn by me getting on you? Do you learn by me showing you twice? Do I have to show you 3 times? Yeah. And then I start reading people very well. And I'm like, okay, I can see in your eyebrows that you're thinking about something, and I'm about to ask you in 2 minutes, because you're gonna go to it, you're gonna come back from it, you're gonna go to it, and I'm like, hey, what's up? What you doing? You need help? Like, this is what it's like. How did you know, chef? Da-da-da. I'm like, you start to read people very well when you get familiar. So managing it was difficult, but you end up learning, you find your footing. And then from there, I became the CDC. So probably, again, less than a year. So my tenure to being there for 3 years, a little less than 3 years at that point, I went from opening, being a line cook, to being the CDC. And I was like, whoa, I'm 20, I think I'm 23, 24 at this point, with the CDC of a very well-established restaurant. That's a James Beard ran kitchen, and you know, I'm traveling now. I'm going to Chicago and New York, and that was a huge thing for me being young. And I'm like, okay, I want to get this experience, but I don't want to feel like I'm tied down to this one spot. I can never go anywhere. Do not think that you'll create the experiences and they'll come for you. So I'm like, I'm traveling. I'm going to Martha's Vineyard. I'm like doing events, and I'm finding the culture and finding these things, and they're just coming to me in abundance. And I was just so unbelievably grateful.
It's awesome.
So yeah, being a CDC was its own challenges, you know. Said these are experiences I'm having for the first time. Like, you know, it's not like, oh, this is my third CDC job or whatever. No, I'm 23. I'm a CDC somewhere. I'm figuring it out just like everybody. And that's it. You're all just figuring it out. It's not.
Yeah, we all are.
That's it. You know, I'm like, people have so much like, oh, do you got to do this? Like, I'm figuring out step one. I know my own is figuring it out. You know, you get grace, you know.
I think people sometimes think that everybody has everything figured out. And then, like, behind the scenes, you're like, bro, these guys are, like, you know, like, we're all winging it, kind of.
What? I'm like, you know what? I'm like, oh, that worked today. Okay, we write that down.
But you know what? Like, I think there's something freeing about that.
Mm-hmm. There's a sense of, like, we're all in it together.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you know, I mean, I guess I say that because I see behind the scenes of a restaurant, and their ordering and their processes or lack thereof, and I'm like, hey, this place, like, this how you run it?
Yeah.
But you still pull it off, like, good for you. I mean, like,
like magic.
we need to work on these couple things, but but you know what, like, I think it's freeing because it just shows you that you don't have to have every single corner, nook, and cranny thing figured out 100% to continue to move forward.
Absolutely.
And progress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you don't, like I said, you just don't have to know everything. And I'm like, you can learn those things as well. That's the thing that people don't realize.
Yep.
But so then at this point, I'm hitting like my third phase of, you know, one of 3 phases, I guess. My third phase of being in the restaurant and managing and running restaurants.
Sure.
Is my creativity.
Okay.
My creativity is about to be challenged. I'm writing menus. I'm creating dishes. I'm, you know, going to the server. I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. This is the origin. This is where the thread of thing are coming to. Which, for me, it was the most difficult thing. Like it is something my mentor told me. It was like, you know, I can teach you how to be creative. You know, we can figure that part out. We can, you know, I can show you how to thread these things together, and you can learn that. But having those soft skills are very important as well, because so many chefs don't have the soft skills. They just want to be in the kitchen and put their head down and just do X, Y, and Z. It's like, cool, then you'll just be in that spot forever, you know? So finding my creativity in this phase was hard, you know? There was some trial and error, some shitty dishes that I'd be like, okay, let me figure this out. But being pushed and thrown into the water really just makes you go. Like, I came from Spain, and I was equating this to, I got thrown into Spain, didn't know Spanish. I knew, like, kitchen Spanish, right? I'm like, oh, okay, esquina, this and that. Like, you know, like, I say these little things to people, and we get in this Uber.
I love that.
Right, and we get in this Uber, and this man doesn't speak no English. So I'm like, okay, Court, we're going to figure this out. And I'm learning what he's saying. He's learning what I'm saying. And then we're communicating, you know. I'm like, oh, okay. I just got pushed past my limit because I was throwing such an unknown thing. And I'm like, okay, let me go to these pop-ups. People are inviting me to, hey, you want to do this dinner? Hey, you want to do that? I'm like, okay, can I do this? Can I do this festival? Can I go to Charleston Food and Wine Festival? Can I go and do these big events and all this other stuff? I'm like, I can, you know, you can.
So you were in Spain for?
I was in Spain for 2.5 weeks.
For food? Like to learn?
A little bit of both. So I went with my family. My sister lives out there, so she stays in San Sebastian.
How did that happen?
So she originally went to Clemson. She was a clinical health major, and she majored in Spanish. So she ended up going to Argentina for a little bit, for like 4 or 5 months. Came back, and then went back out to like Chile, and then she went to Portugal, and then she ended up landing in Spain.
Dang.
I know. I was like, girl, you just out there doing this.
For real.
And I'm like,
what was Spain like? Did you like
oh
it?
my God, Spain was beautiful. I went to Madrid and I went to San Sebastian. Madrid is just such a beautiful architectural city. Walking in there, it's like everything looks the same how it was, and they really try to preserve the history there.
Yeah.
Food was absolutely amazing. You know,
You liked it?
I did. Going from, I would say I like San Sebastian's food a little better. Where we stayed in Madrid was more of the touristy area, but then my favorite part, when we went to Toledo, we went to the ancient city. We got to have some really good Muslim food because Muslim, Christianity, and Muslim, Christianity, and the Jews. That was the three major religions out there. So we had really good Muslim food. Just learning the history, and I'm like walking through the city. They have all these drapes, and the person paying the hand pans. There's this like beautiful thing happening. They're handing us food.
So different than here.
Oh my goodness!
Was it your first time in Europe?
Yes, this was my first time in Europe.
Isn't it so different?
God, you realize how close everything is. I'm like, we're in San Sebastian. I'm like, oh, I can take a train to go to France in less than an hour.
Yes.
And even staying in San Sebastian, which is like a food mecca, like, you know, Anthony Bourdain's favorite spot to go to. You're near the water, you see the mountains, you're in the city. It's just like a trifecta of just amazingness.
It's like you realize how close things are / how big America is.
Yeah,
It's like,
and people are like, oh, I'm going on holiday to da-da-da, and they hop to all these different countries. I'm like, dang, they really just be going here. It's like, no, it's really just a train ride away.
Exactly.
Like literally from going from San Sebastian to France is the same as me going from, I think, like here to, it's actually shorter.
Charleston.
Less than, you know?
Right?
Charleston is like almost 3 hours from here. So I'm like, you tell me I could go to France in half the time. Like, that's
wild.
So crazy. But the food was absolutely amazing.
I love that.
It was so good. I'm trying to go back like next year. So
Do it.
yeah, my sister's out there. I'm like, could live with you.
Sis, hook it up.
I know. Just out there. She's like, oh,
love
yeah,
it.
I'm going to go out and eat like that. I said, I'll be broke. Just eating everywhere. So
I love that.
Europe was beautiful. But yeah.
Okay, so phase 3.
Yes.
CDC, you're learning, pushing creativity. How does third and first, I mean, how does this location, like, you know,
transition?
How does that happen?
So around April, we decided the owners decided to close down Lee and Louise. You know, we're going to transition. We're going to go to a bigger space. We're going to go to the
April
west
of
side.
this year.
April this year, yeah.
2024, okay.
We're going to the west side, you know, just pushing the narrative, you know, being in a Black historic neighborhood, you know, expanding, you know, we started this little nucleus of a spot, and now we really want to be able to
spread your wings,
you know what I'm saying? So then Third and Fernwood was a concept that they've been working on. So I actually went on a hiatus for a little bit. That's why I went to Spain, and then I went to New York for a little bit, did some cooking out there, went to CIA, and I was
This is recent? This is like in the last?
Yeah, this is like, I just got back like a month ago, yeah. So, which was
That's where you've been.
Yeah. You know, I was out a little bit, but yeah, so Third and Fernwood was open, you know, got this meet and 3 thing, and I was like, okay, it's cool, you know. I like to just help open restaurants, you know, that's a really cool concept. I like seeing businesses from start to finish and doing it to Lee and Louise, and I'm like, oh, I can be a part of it here, and then decided to do a concept for the speakeasy called Third. That's part of Third and Fernwood, is like speakeasy in the Fernwood.
Okay.
So the speakeasy is the cocktail bar pre-fee menu. It's really just another creative hub for me to be in. And I'm like, okay, I haven't done something like this, you know. I want to make pre-fee menus paired with cocktails that I'm like, oh, I have leftover okra thing. Okay, you're going to make an okra water with this to do in the cocktail. Or like my main ingredient is pawpaws in this. Okay, you're gonna make a pawpaw liqueur for whatever, and really working hand in hand with my bartender and bar manager like that. So that's something I haven't done. So I'm like, okay, that's something new. Let me try that. So part of being here for me was help opening, you know, getting the concept together. Yep. Not really on the cooking side of things, because the food, we already had the food thing done. It was like, okay, how do we set up the systems, you know, systems and processes.
Which is what you're strong at anyway.
You know, it's such a huge thing. And I'm like, once something becomes turnkey, you can put it anywhere, you know. I'm like, oh, I have all these files and things to plug and play this. So then I'm like, okay, let me find my my creative hub. And I'm like, oh, cool. Let me do this here, find this little creative hub here. And being on a hiatus was very important for me because it kind of just cleared my mind a little bit. Because sometimes it's going from this and then the next thing is like, okay, it's so much. And, I've been working for like 4 years straight already. Let me take some time to myself and just not for a second. It's just a blessing to be able to do it for a summer. And to be able to travel outside and all other stuff. So
that's awesome. Good
thank you. And when I went out of the country and I went to New York and just found myself a little more. I had like a lot of introspective thoughts. I'm like, oh, okay, who are you, Courtney? What do you want to say? What do you want to say now? You've been saying a lot. You've been finding yourself, and it's like, oh, who is Courtney? I'm like, who are you? Let's go on a backpacking trip. Let's see what's what. So now I'm finding my food voice, and that's been a huge journey for me, is finding the food voice. And when you do find it, it's like, oh, that's it, and I'm just nailing it, like, back and forth. So I'm really pulling from my past experiences, my where I grew up at, the things that I ate, and redefining what that looks like on a plate. And then from there, just still soaking in all information. It's like you said, it's always a forever learning journey.
Of course.
So that's the exciting part for me, just chasing food in that nature. I'm like, okay, what can I get to next? What's the next thing? Okay, Michelin, let's do that. Like, let's do X, Y, and Z. I never worked in the West. Let's go to the West, let's go to California. Let's go overseas. Let's go to whatever it is. So I'm so grateful in this time that I was able to have my, kind of like my infancy, area. I was like, oh, this is such a great city to do it in. It's a great space to do it in. I'm so lucky, and a lot of people don't have this, a lot of people that look like me don't have these opportunities. They're stuck in this way, and they have these identity crises and issues, and they get used and abused, and it's just like, dang, like that's harsh. And I'm glad I was able to kind of navigate through that. I wasn't in it as long as some people. Some people have been in it for years, and they don't know how to, like, it's like Stockholm syndrome type deal. So being able to come out of that, be in a really space. Sometimes when I talk about these spaces with other chefs that be around, they're like, yo, like, where is that at? And I'm like, oh, you don't have that there? Like, now I want to do that. I want to be able to create spaces and have, if it's like, oh, do this pop-up, let me meet you, let's do this thing together, and let's create this space with really just dope ideas, dope food, dope energies, and just people just come and gather. You gather, you feel comfortable, and you feel like, wow, it's food for the soul, food for the spirit. So that's
love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I mean, I think the one thing that the common thread, and I think that you've been able to do, is because of all of the focus and hard work. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like that, like, I don't want to dismiss that. Like, I mean, you put in work. Like, you were able to do a lot of these things at a young age because you were disciplined and you were focused. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I love that. Okay. Any last thoughts? Last piece of advice for anybody maybe in the restaurant business, or maybe even not, about just things that you've learned, even the last 6 months. You just kind of taking a little pause and, like, recharging the batteries, getting back, just it's, what's the saying? Sometimes you're too far in the woods to see the trees. Mm-hmm. Like, just kind of like back up. Let's see the woods. What's happening? What direction do I want to go?
Absolutely. I think just because I personally don't own any restaurant businesses.
Sure.
And I think it's very important as well. Like, that's a very important perspective, but also the perspective of, like, the side tier of running restaurants and running people's businesses.
100%.
And like, I think being vulnerable in that aspect that people don't really talk about a lot is like, oh, you always see, like, the owner and this and that. And it's like, oh, who's running these spaces? And it's like, people like me are like,
100%.
Running these spaces. So being able to, I think, a couple of things. Just being young, I'm 25, like, just turned 25. So I'm doing all these things, and just don't let anybody put a cap on you.
Sure.
Like, I do this. I do real estate too. Like, I do a whole bunch of other stuff outside of this. It's like, you can have your cake and eat it too.
Sure.
Like, have multiple cakes and do everything that you can. So don't let anybody put a cap on you, no matter how old you are. I met some really dope chefs that are younger than me, and the really dope chefs that are older than me that are my age, It's beautiful to see. So, don't let anybody put a cap on you, and chase your truth, whatever it is. whatever you stand for, 10 toes down, stand for it. You know, don't let anybody try to defer you from it or talk you out of it. If it sounds crazy, do it because it's probably something nobody has done before.
Yeah.
Challenging yourself, it's just super important. Just listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your mind, your spirit, because it tells you a lot. You know, when you're tired, it's hard. This industry is very hard. It's very, like, you gotta take a break, because if you don't, it's gonna break for you. You know, so I think we're in a point of time where before it was like use and abuse and we're doing it, and there's certain things that were good about that. You know, you became really disciplined, you learn this stuff really fast. Now it's like, okay, like, I'm tired. Like, you know, like, your body is going to break down, and we're here for longevity, you know. And that's another reason why I'm here to do something for longevity. That's my mind, that's whatever business it is, that's whatever concept it is. Yeah. So yeah, you know, take your time. You know, I used to rush a lot. You know, I used to think when I'm being young, and that's a plague too. It's like you're young and you're doing all these great things. Just like, am I behind? Like, am I doing enough? You know, and that was the thing I struggled with, and I still do. I'm like, I should be at this point right now. You know, I should be like 30s right there. I should be here. Like, you know, I just turned 24. Why am I not doing this? Like, yo, stop. Smell the roses. Like, they smell real good right now. Like, realize that you are doing amazing things, and
it takes time. Be patient.
It
like Mom said, be patient.
Gotta be patient, yeah.
I mean, was it like Rome wasn't built in a day? They think
it wasn't.
Dude, it just takes. It just takes longer than you think, but it's sweeter than you think.
Yeah, and you're on your own time. You're on nobody else's time but your.
Yeah, it's your story.
Look, please don't tell me my story. Like, you gonna tell me how long it's supposed to take me to do this? Like, that's ridiculous. So yeah, just take your time. Don't have a gap on any or cap on anything. Don't let it cap you. And you know, you are seen. You know your worth. You are seen, because people will brush over you and make sure you know, I'm here. You know, put your elbows out a little bit, because, you know, it's easy to be swept under the rug.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, I love that. I love all that, and then I think one thing that nobody can deny is results.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, people could try to oversee, but like, she's good. You know, like, you know what I'm saying though? Like, you can't unsee results.
Right.
If you are good at this, it's like,
gonna show.
I don't care who you are.
Right.
I don't care.
Tell me
yeah, I don't care what you look like. I really don't care. You this person gets results. I don't care. So anyway, Courtney, thank you. This was awesome. I love it. If you guys haven't been, you want to shout out maybe your Insta or the restaurant or anything like that, for people to follow?
I guess my personal is like CC_Evans25. Do all like my food stuff on there. 3rd and Fernwood, we're out here. This is where I'm at right now. But yeah, follow my personal page, see what's going on. Try to do some cool things. So
love it. Stop by, you guys check out. We're in the metropolitan area of Charlotte. And so absolutely fantastic pod. Like it, share it, the whole thing. If you guys haven't, click the button, subscribe, all that stuff, do it. And we are super pumped to bring you guys more and more episodes. So stay tuned. Have an incredible, incredible rest of your day. See you guys.